Yo people, my name's Alex and welcome to the very first of my Unity VR game devlog series, which is going to be a series for a game that I'm making for the Oculus Gear VR. It's currently titled Firefight. I'm not too, set on this name. I'm open to suggestions. That was just kind of one of the first ones I came up with, but I quite like it. But basically the main concept of the game is like an arcade style firefighting simulator where you are putting out fires to save the town while protecting your truck from the vandals that have taken over. And I guess the main purpose of this devlog series will be taking my game from where it is to getting it published on the Oculus store, hopefully, and basically taking you guys along the way and just showing you the processes I used to make my game. So I guess I'll just show you guys how I got to where I'm at now. So with VR games, one of the biggest issues is actually rendering, as everything has to be rendered twice, once for each eye. But it is recommended with mobile hardware such as the Gear VR that you actually only keep it to about 50 to 100 draw calls per frame, 50 to 100k polygons and vertices per frame, and you use as few as textures as possible, and maybe take advantage of things like texture atlases. Alright, so the first thing I had to do was jump onto the asset store, just find some low poly models so I could just come up with a prototype, and I found some mobile friendly fire and some mobile friendly water particles, and then I just made a simple extinguish script which basically just gives each fire a timer, and as they are sprayed the time is decreased as well as the size of the particles, and then once that hits 0 they just go out. But I thought, hey, what can I add to this? So I added a helmet, and I was really happy with this, but unfortunately the model of the helmet I had was too high poly, so I'm probably gonna have to make my own later and come back to this idea. So the next thing man did was add a force to the hose, because obviously in real life when you spray things they get pushed back, but I can't say it worked perfectly first time, but after a little change in the maths I had that working, and I was quite happy because it's another way to interact with the world, as obviously the only way you do is by spraying the hose. So yeah, I was really happy with that. At this stage I'm actually already at about 70 to 80k polygons, and there's actually about 40 draw calls being rendered at the moment, and obviously there's actually not much in the scene, and there's actually not that many fires, and obviously man needs more fires, so I'm gonna have to find a way to really reduce those draw calls and try and limit those polygon counts. I came across this article which talks about the fact that transparent objects all require multiple passes over pixels that they touch, which can end up having increased amount of draw calls, and especially for transparent particle effects like smoke, and of course my fire and smoke particles were both using transparent textures. To get around this I changed the way that the particles are rendered, so instead of using a billboard animated texture sheet, it now uses just a cube mesh to render each fire particle, and this was quite a good workaround because it managed to save quite a few draw calls, and it looks better in my opinion as the fire is more vibrant and it kind of fits the aesthetic of the game a little bit better. The next thing I worked on was implementing the first enemy of the game and just improving the look of the scene a little bit, and I basically wanted the enemies to throw molotovs at you in a curve, like what I found out to be what is known as a parabolic curve. And while I was doing some research on this, I came across this article on the Unity forum, and this guy Stefan B had given up the code on how to simulate a thrown projectile, so shout out to him. I was really happy with this as it gives the player time to spray the molotovs out of the air. So because I wanted to reuse the enemies and their molotovs, I had to create an object pooling script, and I made an enemy spawn manager which has a list of transforms, and as each enemy is deactivated it just moves the enemy to the next transform in the list and then reactivates it. And as it's recommended with mobile VR, I changed the sky box to a sky dome, which is just a dome shaped mesh with the texture being rendered on the inside, and this is to prevent extra lighting data being calculated. And I also just added some extra particles to the scene just to make it feel a bit more alive. The next thing I wanted to do was get my game working with the Oculus Gear VR controller, so I just went on their website and looked through their documentation, and they provide you with the assets and provide you with a walkthrough on how to get them integrated. So that includes the controller meshes as well as scripts to do with tracking and things like that. And after going through the walkthrough, which was actually quite straightforward, I had it working, and I actually had a bit of a happy accident where I left both hoses on, and I thought this is a bit mad still, so I'm thinking I might have to come back to this as like a power up or something. I then spent some time making the Molotov look a bit better by adding a trail renderer and a smoke particle system that emits its particles in world space, and as the Molotov moves it leaves the trail behind, and it looks really cool as it leaves it in that curved shape. So I was really happy with that. And I also spent a little bit of time of trying to add a new enemy, which is just a guy that just pushes a cart in front of you, so you have to just spray the cart away, otherwise if you drive into it, it explodes. I then started working on these pop-up scores that just pop up and fade out after a certain amount of time. Well, they don't fade out, they scale down in size. I did originally have them fading out, but I found out that by using the render.material, it actually doesn't batch the material anymore. So when you have like say 10 of these scores on screen, it is at 10 separate draw calls. So I thought, no, let me just scale them down in size instead. As the scene was looking a bit bare and I was already at the limit of 100k polygons, vertices and 50 draw calls, I thought it'd be a good idea to implement some fog. I started looking at some different implementations of mobile fog for VR, and I came across this post by StaggartCreations who talks about how they used a hollow cylinder with a shader that utilizes depth blending, and basically the cylinder turns transparent the closer it gets to a solid object. And I thought this was a brilliant implementation of fog. And now this is where the awesomeness of the Unity community comes in, because sellers just asked for, is the script and the shader available? And bang, my guy StaggartCreations, man, just drops the package on the table for you. Shout outs to Staggart. I did mention before that on Android the camera doesn't enable the depth buffer by default, and I did try adding this script but it didn't work. So I'll leave a link for this in the description, and if anyone can get this working, please let me know how you did it. But I need to come back to this. I did actually try another implementation of mobile fog, but in the end it kind of just looked like the normal Unity fog, so I kind of gave that up. But while going through the process, I found this cool effect which looks really, you know, nightmarish or hellish or something, which I would definitely want to use for another game. Obviously it doesn't suit this game, but definitely want to use it for another game. So at this point I'm actually already exceeding the draw call limit. I was actually at about 100k polygons, but I was at about 60 draw calls, so I had to really find a way to reduce those. And I was looking into a way to convert the textures being used into a texture atlas, so where it combines all the textures just basically into one texture. And I actually came across this asset called Mesh Baker by Ian Dean, who is a total OG, because there's a paid version, but he also has given out a free version. And to be honest, the free version is amazing. Like, I even emailed him, I was like, yo, do I need to buy the paid version to get the lighting working? And he messaged me back saying, no, my G, you can do that with the free one. And I was like, safe, my G, you know what I'm saying? He didn't even try and sell me the version. I was there, I could have bought it, but yeah, I really didn't. I have any money, so I will buy it one day. So what Mesh Baker does is it can combine a bunch of meshes together to make a single mesh, and then it can take the textures and create a texture atlas, as well as sorting out the UVs for the new mesh, which is absolutely awesome. And this is all for free. There are some drawbacks with this, with things like occlusion, but for me, as the game was kind of linear, just down straight path, it was perfect. So next thing I had to do was work on increasing the size of the level, as it was pretty short. So there are a few ways I could have gone about doing this. I at first had the whole level laid out, and then just as I was going through the level, it would load the parts of the level as game objects, but I found they were still taking up memory. So what I did instead was wrote this level controller, which loads the levels asynchronously and unloads them asynchronously, and they are controlled by a trigger. It puts a call into the level controller script, either loads or unloads part of the level. So after I got the lighting working, which is a mixture of baked directional lights and some lighting probes placed around the area, I then showed the game to a few of my friends and got a little bit of feedback from them. And after listening to their feedback, I implemented a UI for the health and water level of the truck, as well as just when you die, there's a UI to show your score. Also, from one of the suggestions, I spent some time implementing a fire extinguishing grenade, as one of my friends pointed out to me that some firefighters actually have access to fire extinguishing grenades, and I thought this was really cool, as it could be used to put out fires and help kill enemies. So this is a really good idea. And I actually got this working by drawing a Bezier curve from the grenade and then having the grenade follow the Bezier curve. I then spent some time polishing up the game and getting rid of some of the prototype objects, such as I got a new hose model that I made myself in Maya, and I got some new enemy models that are actually animated, so that, you know, they're just not standing there anymore. And it looks a lot better as they now telegraph their attack, and you can tell that they're actually going to throw the Molotov at you. I also had to create ragdolls for the enemies, as well as create a script that could reset the rotation and positions of each limb. As the enemies were object pulled and they would, you know, be reactivated, they had to be reset back to a standing position. I also experimented with, you know, filling the background with some mountains, and I quite like the look of it. It fills up the background a bit, but it's still a little bit boring. Still need a bit more detail there. And because I've added this extra geometry, I've actually done my first occlusion bake, and there are a few issues with some of the clouds and things like that flickering, but there was definitely a boost in performance, so I was happy with that. I then spent some time working on the enemy AI and adding some more animations to the enemies just so they can run around. and I got them basically running around by using the Unity nav mesh system. And they basically just set destination, and if they hit the edge of the nav mesh, then they just kind of stop running and then just look for a new destination, which is pretty cool. I really like the way it looks. I think they could run around a bit more and actually maybe interact with the world a bit better, so I'm gonna have to look for more animations for them. I also added a particle system to the Molotov because after some more playtesting, some people said that it was still a bit hard to see the Molotovs. I added this kind of like indicator to the Molotovs. I don't know if I really like it, but you can definitely see the Molotov a lot clearer. I'd also like to say there's actually been game audio. It's just that the Gear VR doesn't record audio, so that's kind of why I haven't really touched on it. But I have actually recorded audio but literally for this video, because you have to literally have a microphone set up, and then I just recorded the audio and then synced it in a video editor later, which wasn't the best way, I believe, but hey, it worked. But yeah, guys, I'd just like to say thank you for watching my devlog, and I apologize for the length, but this really was like 6 months worth of development, maybe even a little bit longer. And I'd just like to say that although the game is quite far along, I'm actually nowhere near finished. I've still got some new level assets that I need to implement. I've got pickups that I need to make, shop system, new level, and actually level events. Like I wanted things like a bridge, and then if you had to put out the fire on the bridge before it collapsed, or just things like that. And yeah, I hope you found this interesting and can actually find some use to some of the scripts or the tutorials. So yeah, once again, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, as there's going to be more content coming up. Also, let me know if you want me to cover any of the scripts or or just anything that you would like to know about, as I do plan on adding tutorials and live streams to the channel. But then once again, thanks guys, love.